Yes, so it all started one day. I was kind of watching my partner go and play football, and we just went out with some friends for a few drinks, and I just felt really cold and just really run down, and I just thought I was, was coming down with something maybe. So I didn't think anything of it, just called it a night and went home. The next day I still felt exactly the same, but I developed more of a headache this time. But again, I just thought I was coming down with a cold, so I just didn't think anything of it. Anyways, it was the next day and I still had the same symptoms. I was absolutely freezing, but my skin was getting hotter, and then my headache was getting worse and worse. But this time I went to go and get my hair cut, and I remember standing up so she could cut my hair because it was quite long, and I just felt like I was going to pass out. Now luckily my hairdresser is on like the end of my road, so she finished up and I went straight home, and it just kind of went downhill from there really. I didn't really think too much of it, just that I was maybe a bit dehydrated. Looking back on it now, I probably should have done something about it, but so I just again slept most of the day, trying to drink as much as possible and leave it as that. And then I woke up the next morning, early hours, probably about 3 a.m. And I was just throwing up constantly, probably about 15 times I was just throwing up. My skin was literally like red raw, but I was shivering. I noticed as well that I started to develop a rash on my legs and stuff, and my ankles were starting to swell. So I had work early that morning, so I tried to set an alarm so I could sleep it off and maybe wake up and like call in sick. So I stayed up, I called in sick, and then I just, as I like ended the phone call, I just tried to get up and take some painkillers, and I just couldn't stand whatsoever. So it took me like an hour and a half to get downstairs, but obviously I couldn't stand, so I had to like bum shuffle the whole way down the stairs. And then my partner's parents noticed the rash on my leg as well and was like, right, okay, something probably isn't right here. But I still left it quite a while before taking action. So I went back home to my actual home, and I just got into bed and I called my mum. I was like, look, mum, because my mum's a nurse, look, mum, this is the situation. These are my symptoms. And she was like, right, okay, you should probably call 111. It doesn't sound great. So I called 111, and they said you need to go to hospital straight away. But I absolutely had no energy after that phone call. I just fell asleep because I had no energy trying to get up whatsoever. So I ended up falling into like a 4-hour nap, which wasn't great at all. So this was like 4 o'clock that day that I actually ended up going to A&E. I got seen straight away. They took like my blood pressure and everything, and they said, you've got suspected sepsis. And then they rushed me into like an A&E ward where they were actually like trying to find what the cause of it was. But I was there for 12 hours with no fluid, no medication, absolutely nothing. I was just led on a bed, freezing cold. Doctors were coming in and out, and this consultant came in. So this had been the next day now. We're like 3 a.m. the next morning. The consultant come in, was asking if he could feel my stomach and like if anywhere hurts, and I was like, I've got a really stiff neck and stuff, and this is where the meningitis came into part with it. But he asked to feel my stomach, and I was like, absolutely, go ahead, my stomach's not in any pain whatsoever. But as soon as he felt my stomach, I was just screaming like in agony. It was so painful. And then straight away from there, I was rushed into resus, and it's also a bit of a blur, to be fair. I can't really remember a lot, but my eyes were like, I was going in and out of consciousness. I was just screaming that my back was in agony. I couldn't feel my toes, I couldn't feel my fingers. I think there was around 6 nurses, 2 doctors and 1 consultant. I was being pumped of morphine, potassium, and my mum was there as well at this point. And I just remember like mumbling, crying, like I don't want to die kind of thing. And my mum was just absolutely sobbing. And and she asked the nurses, she was like, is everything going to be okay? And I just remember hearing like, your daughter's really poorly, we're going to do all that we can. So I was in and out of consciousness, but then my throat was like spasming, which I didn't think anything of it. My mum didn't know what it was. But it turns out that your throat starts to spasm because you can't get enough oxygen or something like that. I've recently found out. And it basically means that you're going to go into like a cardiac arrest. So I was moments away from a cardiac arrest in resus, which was crazy. After that, I got taken for a CT scan, something along those lines, I think. Again, they couldn't find what the cause was. And then I got rushed into ICU. My veins were shutting down and everything, so they had to get like this machine, like this ultrasound machine, to try and find my veins and put cannulas in, but it just wasn't working, which was becoming really, really painful because my skin and everything was so sore. So I think I had 8 cannulas in my arms altogether, in both arms, and I had 1 in my foot because they were running out of room to put them in. I couldn't turn over, I couldn't speak, I could barely open my eyes. I couldn't hold a cup of water. I literally couldn't do anything. I spent a week in ICU. I'd lost around a stone in weight in 5 days. And then at the end of the week, I was finally able to, I've been progressing up to like being able to wash myself and stuff like that. But at the end of the week, I was like, Mum, I really want you to ask the doctors, can I get up? Can I try and start walking a little bit? So they said, yeah, and obviously they were there with me and stuff. And I took around 20 steps from my bed to the door, and I was absolutely exhausted. I ended up sleeping for like 5 hours. I was so tired. And then after that, I went on to an adult ward for around 2 days just to finish my medication, to make sure I was, eating properly and stuff before they discharged me. So that was that. And then after those 2 days, I was able to go home. And then I spent the next 4 months trying to recover. I couldn't stand up in the shower. I had to sit down. I couldn't stand for longer than 5 minutes without feeling tired and weak and out of breath. And now we're 8 months on, and I feel back to normal. So I didn't have a clue what the symptoms were. And if I had done something about it and not waited those 3 days, my situation wouldn't have been as bad. Obviously people can have it worse, but you just don't think that it's going to be you, kind of thing. And actually it really can. That's not how it works. People need to know the signs. It's really important. Just don't be oblivious to it. Know the signs. You don't have to be in your 50s and onwards. It literally happens at any stage of your life, and it can just happen. For me, they still don't know what caused it. I think having this perception that you're gonna cut your leg and it's gonna get infected, and that's how you're gonna get sepsis. That isn't always how it is. And I think if you're only thinking like that, then it isn't great, because that's how I thought, and then look how that ended. It didn't end very well. So don't be so oblivious to it, and actually do some research, I think.